So, a lot of you ladies simply know me as Shima from YouTube. And yes, I am Shima. And I'm so thankful that a lot of you ladies found me here on YouTube. It's from 2007. I'm really grateful for that and I appreciate that. And I will always be humbled by that. That a lot of you ladies are still here 17 years later. I mean, that means more to me than I could ever explain. But with that said, there is so much more to me, ladies. There's so much more than, this long hair guru that teaches our beautiful black women how to grow long hair, or in my famous words, fairy tale mythical hair. You see, I am also a writer, and this is my book, The Utter Hiroshima. That's my full name, by the way, Hiroshima. My dad gave it to me, when he said that me and my twin brother Nagasaki, we sounded like two bombs exploding in my mother's belly. And so the two names occurred to him. In case some of you ladies didn't know, the names Hiroshima, Nagasaki is from World War II. And those are the cities in Japan that got bombed during World War II. Yeah, so that's where the fame comes from. Now, like I said, a lot of you only know me as Shima from YouTube. And the reason why I'm making this video is because, well, remember when I told you ladies in my previous video how I was feeling, a bit down, melancholy? Well, ever since this trial regarding Cassie and Diddy began, I mean, it's drudged up my dark experiences with Hollywood. I mean, this trial seems to be everywhere you look on TV, YouTube, TikTok. I mean, just the other day, I went grocery shopping and there I was at the checkout line, surrounded by magazine after magazine, by tabloid after tabloids, with Diddy and Cassie, or Diddy or Cassie on the cover, staring straight at me. I mean, you can't escape it. So I've had no choice but to see this and listen to what has been going on, with this trial. And so as I pay closer and closer attention, I realized that Cassie's unfortunate situation with Diddy has several similarities to my unfortunate situation with Ron Eckstine, which is the man you're seeing on your screen right here. Now, this man paraded himself as a personal artist manager from Hollywood. This was back in 2002 when I had my fortunate experience with this guy. He paraded himself as a personal artist manager from Hollywood, California. And, he promised to make me part of his three-girl singing group, which he called Volume, and also to help me out with my modeling career as well. Now, if the name Eckstein sounds familiar, well, that's because that last name was indeed made pretty famous by none other than Billy Eckstine. That's the late jazz singer, and he's considered music royalty as well of the 1940s and 50s. So just a brief history of Billy Eckstine's life so you ladies will understand why Ron Eckstein is so significant. Okay, it's all because of his father. It's all because of his late father, Billy Eckstine. And so Billy Eckstine had this gorgeous bass baritone voice, which most attracted the general public. It was that beautiful voice that mostly attracted the general public, back in the 1940s and 50s. And a lot of people still listen to him today in 2025. I mean, he's a legend. And he was so good that he was even nicknamed the Sapia Sinatra, according to some of the articles I read about him. So they were comparing him to Frank Sinatra. Now, please note, ladies, please note that Billy Eckstine was way before my time. And I, of course, go into deeper detail in my book, my memoir, The Other Hiroshima, about him and his dad. And well, when it comes to his hit songs, Billy Eckstine also enjoyed several hits. Mostly it happened in the 50s for him, with million-dollar sellers like My Foolish Heart, which spent 19 weeks, 19 whole weeks on the Billboard bestsellers chart and also peaked at number 6. He also enjoyed another hit, which is very famous, and that hit is called I Apologize. And well, that song also spent a whole 19 weeks on the Billboard bestsellers chart, and it peaked at number 8. So he was doing his thing. He was doing his thing. And I hope now that you're understanding that I'm talking about the real deal here, ladies. When you really had to have the talent, when you really had to have the voice, the stage presence to make it in the music business back then. Billy Eckstine was in the major leagues in the music industry. You could say he was alongside the likes of Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra. I mean, hence the comparison. They were comparing him to Frank Sinatra. And well, this legendary Hollywood star, Billy Eckstine, well, he just happened to be the father of Ron Eckstine, the man that manipulated me and took advantage of my naiveness. Well, as you know, earlier in the video, I mentioned Cassie and Diddy, that the trial is everywhere. And as I was, looking at this trial, paying really close attention to everything that's been going on, I started noticing something. That Cassie's situation with Diddy is very, very familiar with my situation with Ron Eckstein. There was a lot of similarities that stood out to me. For example, here's just a few of the things that stood out to me. So Cassie was a young, fresh, beautiful young lady when she met Diddy. She was around 19 years old, and of course Diddy made her promises of making her dreams come true in Hollywood. Well, I too was this young, fresh, beautiful young lady in my early 20s back then in 2002, and I met Ron Eckstein, this Hollywood personal artist manager who also made me promises of making my dreams come true in Hollywood. So you have Cassie, a naive young lady surrounded by all these grown Hollywood men, telling her everything she wanted to hear. And then you have me, a naive young lady, when I was also sucked in by Ron, another manipulative Hollywood man telling me everything I wanted to hear. And allow me to delve into the age difference a bit more. Cassie, again, she was 19, and Diddy was, I believe, almost 39, 38, around that age. It was almost like a 20-year age gap between them two. I was 23, and Ron was about 54, I believe. And I mean, that was a massive age difference. Because in my case, it was like a 30-year age gap. So imagine the manipulation that went on. And I noticed this pattern after pattern, the much older man manipulating the younger woman. It never fails. It just never fails. And this is what these Hollywood men with predatory minds do, ladies. They prey on very young, naive girls like me. They prey on very naive young girls like Cassie and so many more out there. Cassie just happens to be the one that, they're putting out in the media over and over again. But it is like thousands, of Cassies, thousands of Shimas, that this happens to. Again, it is a pattern. The naive young lady with stars in her eyes, getting duped by these grown twice, triple times the age Hollywood men. I mean, look at the similarities for yourselves, ladies. As a matter of fact, I can show you better than I can tell you. Look at us. Look at me and look at Cassie. Two young ladies, two beautiful women of color in the prime of our lives, full of youth, full of life, full of eagerness and determination to make our Hollywood dreams come true. And being the naive young ladies that we were at the time, we gave all of our trust to these two older men. Two older Hollywood men who told us everything we wanted to hear. Now, little did anyone know, as you can now see, ladies, little did anyone know that behind Cassie's shining, smiling face, behind my shining, smiling face, we were just two young women being abused. Now, while I was not physically abused like Cassie, no, made to do freak offs, although that, and let me be honest with you, ladies, because that may have happened to me if I would have stayed longer with Ron. Just like it happened to Cassie, she ended up staying much longer with Diddy. So, hence the freak offs, They, they, they feel you out. They start feeling you out to see how far you're willing to go with certain things that they suggest to you or that they put in your head. They're older men. They manipulate their way into making you do things you never dreamed you'd do, just like it happened to Cassie. But in my case, the mental, the sexual, the verbal abuse that I experienced with Ron, you know, That was devastating enough. All of that is in my book, The Other Hiroshima. And if you have my book already, then you know what I am talking about. It was not a pleasant experience by any stretch of the imagination. Ron told me things I wanted to hear, as well as things I never expected to hear. There were so many deep Hollywood secrets that Ron would tell me, ladies, about this celebrity and that celebrity. And I'm talking about celebrities that 99% of the world knows. Celebrities from the old school to the new school. Remember, ladies, if you could just understand this, Ron Eckstine comes from Hollywood royalty. Billy Eckstine was his father. Okay, he was a big deal in the 40s and 50s. All right, but they lived in Hollywood all their lives. Okay, so he's been immersed in the Hollywood life since a baby. And throughout the time that I spent with him, even though it was kind of short, he did share with me so much about these stars, that we put up on these pedestals, that we put up in these pedestals, and to him, they were just everyday people since that's what he grew up around. But to us non-Hollywood people, to us regular folks, I can tell you that jaws would drop at the shocking things he would share with me about them. In my memoir, I included as much as I could, but I tell you, ladies, the truth of the matter is that I couldn't fit everything into my book. I mean, my memoir is already 520 pages long, so if I would have written everything that Ron told me about these celebrities and other things that he spoke about, things that nobody else knows about, then my book wouldn't have been 520 pages long. It would have been more like 5,520 pages long. But anyway, I just thought I'll finally let you ladies know, why I was feeling kind of down the other day. It's just that a lot of the things that Cassie has gone through with Diddy hit a core with me. Like it really hit home because it brought flashbacks. I mean, painful flashbacks. But I write it better than I can explain it, ladies. And this was a big reason why I decided to write everything down. And then hence my memoir was born. You know. It was my way of purging everything out, purging all the pain, all the disappointment, you know. All of it is purged on paper, you know. My It's like my personal therapeutic release. My strength lies in my writing, and it is through the written word that I am able to get my message across. My cautionary tale, to please be cautious of Hollywood and these predatory men, ladies. Please be cautious, because as you can see through the media, through the magazines, through the internet, what you're seeing, nowadays, these predators are slowly but surely being exposed and brought to justice one by one. Or at the very least, you are seeing them for how they've always been. They tend to follow the same playbook, by the way. They tell a young girl, a young naive girl like Cassie, like me, when I was younger in the early 2000s, they tell us everything we want to hear. They have a way of telling us everything we want to hear, how to hit the right spot so that we can believe them, and then they don't follow up with the promises. But in the meantime, they're using up our bodies, they're aging us out, because sometimes, they like to keep us around, for years and years, just like Diddy did with Cassie. If you're listening to the trial, then you know what I'm talking about. He kept her around for years and years, aging her out. Only had her release one album, and I think he signed her to like a 10 album deal or something. Anyway, he stole all her youth from her. All her career was stolen. And just like Ron was doing with me, but he decided to dispose of me. He used me up and disposed of me. Sometimes that happens too. And they just, they lie to you and get what they want from you, and they get rid of you right away. And I guess in my case, I was extremely lucky because things could have been even worse for me, just like with Cassie. And I'm only using Cassie as an example. Remember, there's thousands upon thousands of young ladies out there getting taken advantage of by these Hollywood predators. And not just in Hollywood, in the real world as well. They are wasting your time, the years ticking by. One day you're 19, and then the next day you're 29. Your glory years, in the music business, long gone. And I'll never forget something that Ron had told me, because remember, I was 23, and he told me, well, Madonna made it when she was 25. And looking back on that comment now, I know what he really meant by that. That I was getting up there in age, and in order to be a marketable singer in Hollywood, they prefer you as young as possible. So 23 was pushing it in that business. Okay. Even though it sounds young in the real world, in Hollywood, 23, you're already getting up there. So, with that said, please, ladies, please let my testimony open your eyes. Let Cassie's testimony open your eyes. Because at least we got out of our situations alive. I mean, we've been through the fire, and we are showing you what it's really like behind the dark curtains of Hollywood. Again, you see our smiling faces, right? You see our youthful glow, right? Well, guess what, ladies? That's all it is. A picture. Behind the scenes, there are beatings. Behind the scenes, there is verbal abuse. Behind the scenes, there is sexual abuse. There is mental abuse. There is abuse of all kinds going on behind the scenes. And as I explained before, they're also wasting your time and aging you out, while promise after promise, of I'm going to make you a big star. I'm going to help you with your career. All of these empty promises, constantly being told to you by these much older predatory evil men. And one day you'll find yourself in your 30s. One day you'll find yourself in your 40s. Just look at Cassie. I believe she's in her 30s. And there is no Hollywood career in sight. Okay? At least when it comes to her singing career, her albums never got released. Only one. So, and with me, nothing. I didn't even get to be part of the group. Okay? So, be it modeling, singing, acting, or even dancing, use our testimony as a cautionary tale. And just be careful, ladies. There are so many other careers you can choose where you can be safer and even make more money. I mean, it's 2025, not 1995 or even 2005 anymore. The world has changed drastically. People are opening up their eyes to Hollywood and no longer falling for its smoke and mirrors. Thank God. So, ladies, allow me to conclude. And if you're interested in this part of my life, The Other Hiroshima is the name of my memoir. It's on Amazon, and it's also on Barnes and Noble websites. Both direct links are in the description box below. And I'd like to thank you, for listening. Thank you, ladies. I really sincerely mean that. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. Thank you for at least listening. But if you want to do more than that, you can read, a nice long sample of my book right here on Amazon for free, or you can download it in its entirety when you order it as an ebook, or you can also get it in paperback or hardcover. And when you're done reading it, ladies, when you're done reading my memoir, let's bring more attention to sexual abuse, to verbal abuse, to mental abuse against women, just by taking a few minutes and leaving your honest review for my book, just as these wonderful ladies did. So to the ladies that already left their reviews, thank you so much. More honest reviews will help to bring more attention to this matter and will give us as women of these terrible experiences a voice. Okay, we can have a voice. If we're brave enough to speak out. It took everything I have to write this book, first of all, and then to speak about it. It takes everything that I have. It takes a lot of bravery to come forward, and I completely understand why so many young ladies and grown women don't come forward, because it's terrifying to some of us. It just takes a lot of courage. So, but when you have a community, that supports you, that that's cheering you on, and well, that gives you more courage to speak up. Okay, so thank you, ladies. Again, thank you for listening, and have a blessed one.